I visualized for years and nothing changed. And I wasn't aware that there was a pattern underneath it that was keeping me stuck. I'm going to explain how I was visualizing and then tell you the pattern that shows up as. I also want to say that if you haven't watched my previous video about when you're living in a certain identity, when you're living with the outside world affirming that identity for years, i.e., mine was for over 10 years, I was ill. That has a huge part to play when it comes to manifestation and how to reprogram your mind, and the fact that your body is storing that trauma, is holding on to that grief. So if you want to watch that one first, because that is a huge part of this story, then I will link that below. So when I visualized, I was always visualizing like before I would go to sleep, and I would visualize what I wanted, right? But um, I was visualizing from outside of my eyes. So I was visualizing myself from bird's eye view. I was looking at my future self, living her life, doing the things that I wanted to get, but it was like I was watching a movie. I wasn't watching from my own eyes looking out, which is what they normally would say when it comes to visualization. You have to embody her and view out of your eyes, like as if you're looking in the mirror when you're looking at your dream body, or you're looking at the wheel of your new car and you're feeling it. Those things would be classed as visualization. But what I was doing for ages, and no one, like, I didn't know at all that was the waiting loop. So for ages, for years, I was like, why are my visualizations not happening? Everyone else says they're happening for them and mine aren't. Now, like I said before, the huge part was the illness. My body was holding on to trauma and grief and shame, and I was not releasing it. I was releasing it out here, but not in my body. So my body needed to go through that process, and I spoke about that in that video. But this is just the missing piece when it came to visualization, and what I was doing that wasn't that was keeping me constantly in the waiting loop. The waiting is a pattern, and mine was waiting for approval, waiting for clarity before I begin something. So this form of visualization wasn't that I was doing it wrong and I didn't know. It's actually my body chose that way. My body chose that in order to keep me safe. I'm constantly watching, like a film, I'm watching my dream life, but I'm not actually embodying her. I'm not becoming her. So this is the part when you bring your chart up and we speak about how you may visualize, how you may manifest, what techniques you might do based on your chart through my own lived experience. This is through being Saturn ruled. This is through Saturn in my first house, and this is through my chart being predominantly water and earth. I cannot just do the writing and the scripting and the subconscious reprogramming and the subliminals without the embodiment, without tapping into my senses. That's not something that can happen for me. And if you are Saturn ruled too, know that 60, 70, even maybe 80% of it is going to be embodiment. It's not going to be the reprogramming and all the techniques. Those help and those are add-ons, but the base, the foundation is that you wake up on a daily basis as her, you embody her. Embodiment for everyone, but especially if you have got a heavy Saturn placement, or your Capricorn rising, or Aquarius rising, or you have Saturn like squaring something, know that the way you work through that is by action, is by embodying the 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 way, is by embodying the version of you that Saturn wants you to be within that connection. You can look at the houses and decide what that, like, where the tension is between there, because squares are just showing you like the tension between those two houses and like what might not be easy for you. what might be like you have to put more attention to those two houses, versus if Saturn is trining something, you might not have to actually try that hard. If you want to understand that more, I do specifically talk about every aspect that Saturn would be making within your birth chart and within a transit chart with Saturn with Saturn transit and natal Saturn. In the waiting loop, which is the Saturn Masterclass, is a self-paced video course, and that is linked below if you are interested in understanding that a bit more. But when it comes to being more water or more earth, it is where your senses come in. It is embodiment. It is how you would feel. Like, how would you feel when you have your dream car or your dream apartment or your dream bank account number? It's not so much about visualizing it, it's about feeling it. That's the emotion, that's the water. And the earth is the embodiment. How would she act? Would she do monthly finance check-ins as if she has that bank account number? Probably. Would she check up on would she learn about financial literacy before the money comes in? Probably. Those are the things that are more earth catered and obviously Saturn catered with the embodiment. There's someone I know who's heavily air. They have a lot of Gemini placements. When I tell you they can write something, script it, or say something out loud, and within a few months that thing has happened, there's a natural flow there. That doesn't mean it's not difficult. That doesn't mean that it's easy and they didn't have to do anything. It just means that they actually are able to speak it first and then it comes. Whereas when you're more earth, and especially again if you're a Capricorn rising and Saturn ruled, it is an embodiment first. It isn't you hope it comes true, or you do the subliminal work, even though again those work. This is like this is the embodiment first. How would you be? But notice, if you go to bed at night and you're visualizing, and even if it is a form of escapism, if you're visualizing watching yourself, like watching your dream self live her life, then you are in the waiting zone and your body is trying to keep you stuck. Your nervous system is trying to keep you stuck. And yes, regulation is so important. Yes, pleasure and joy is so important as part of that, as part of regulating your nervous system and getting you out of the waiting zone. But embodiment, action, is just as important. Testing your capacity is just as important as everything else. And that is by showing up and being consistent, even if you don't want to. That is testing your capacity in a workout, even if you can't be bothered. Because the can't be bothered part and the don't want to part normally is your nervous system trying to keep you stuck, trying to keep you in the same place. So the things that I love to do, and these are specifically for me when it comes to being more water and being more earth in my chart, are things where I'm tapping into the emotions when I'm scripting, when I'm doing mirror work, when I am visualizing. I don't visualize myself from my eyes more. I just visualize the feeling. Like I close my eyes and I just feel, what would it feel like to have that? And I tap into that. This is when I am moving my body. I literally visualize myself feeling stronger. And I'm like, oh God, like I can do that. And then every time I go back to do my workout, I can do a little bit more than I could before. When I'm scripting, I'm not scripting, oh, I wake up in here and I'm able to buy this and that and that. I'm like, I woke up and the sun came through my windows and I could feel it on my skin. I've got my coffee in my hands and I'm sitting on my balcony and I'm watching the sunrise. I can hear the birds chirping. I can taste the coffee. I'm so grateful. I go with senses more because that is something that taps your body into it, which is what you would need if you were earth, and the feeling sense if you were water. Now, again, this isn't purely from my own experience. This is what I've tested with other people. When they are more air, they are able to tap into the writing more and more just like go on a flow as if like they're writing a story. And then those things are able to happen more. With fire, if you have a lot of fire, it's just you have to show up as her. Like you have to be confident enough to show up as her. And that's why, like, for instance, fake it until you make it doesn't always work for everyone, because some people, I'm not saying those people are, but some people, if they were water, they wouldn't be able to naturally fake their emotions. If they're feeling sad, if they're feeling down, they can't do that. Like, they genuinely can't fake it until they make it. Whereas fire can be like, no, I'm gonna fucking go. I'm it, you know? So that's just an aspect that I've tested myself and other people with. Especially when I studied, they didn't, well, the course that I did, they didn't really speak about it from that angle. So this is just something that I've learned through like lived experience, working with other people's charts and understanding it from like an element point of view. The modalities also do add to that, but that's like a separate conversation. And the other part that they do speak about is obviously the benefics and where they are. I don't want to get too technical in this, so I'm just going to say, if you want to understand sect, which is like day and night chart, and what planet is more powerful in the day and what planet is more powerful in the night, like I can give you a quick hypnosis, but basically if you're a day chart, i.e. if you're born in the day and the sun is on the top half of your birth chart, then Jupiter and Saturn would be your like best malefic, and Jupiter would be your best benefic. And if you were evening chart or night chart, then the sun would be on the bottom half of your chart, and that means Venus and Mars. Mars would be your best benefic, and Venus would be your best. Sorry. Mars would be your best malefic, and Venus would be your best benefic. Say those words 100 times. So, with that, forget about the malefic part for a moment, but with that, with looking at Jupiter and Venus, it is looking at which one you can work with a lot. However, I noticed that this isn't, and I went to a webinar about this, but like it is personal, like first, because like I'm a day chart, Jupiter would be that. However, I have got a strong Venus placement because it's conjunct Pluto and it has mutual reception, and it's also trining Jupiter. I don't want to get too technical in this video because I'm going with what my lived experience is and what's worked for me. But I would say, like, you just have to intuitively go with what feels more powerful to you. If you're a day chart but you feel more intuitively connected to your Venus placement, then tap into your Venus placement and what element is your Venus in. And that's the same how I view personally when I'm working with those planets, or if I want to tap into that energy more, I tap into how I feel in that moment. So if you do feel like you're more connected to Jupiter, Jupiter grows through expansion. So that means you do have to go out to those areas. You do have to put yourself out there more. You do have to go try new things and expand yourself, right? If you are more connected to Venus, then that is intuitive. That is through the little tiny daily pleasures that you have in your life, through the romanticizing your life through daily little things. Those are what you would connect yourself with more if you were connected more to Venus through a form of manifestation. And naturally, this is your chart. This is what you were born with. So this is how you naturally feel. There's not this like magic potion and understanding. Is the more and more you learn about your chart, the more and more it is feeling like you are coming home, because you're like, oh, I didn't need to fight myself all that time. This is how I naturally move through life. This is naturally how I would move my body. Why am I trying to do something different? This is naturally how I would show up in my daily routines. Why am I trying to do something different? Like, this is alignment. Alignment is just confirmation of what you always knew, but you were trying to be someone else so much that you couldn't really focus and listen. So for me, I feel connected to my both. Sometimes I do need to go out and expand myself and go put myself in new spaces and go talk to people and expand my mind. And then other times I do listen to my body. I am intuitive, I am grounded. I go through my days and find little joys within my day. Both of those are valid, and both of those can be a way you manifest, whichever one feels the most aligned with you. One is just through intuitive presence, and the other one is through expanding your capacity. Both can be used. So I just went on a huge rant with the elements and with the benefics and things like that. But I wanted to say what I've done and like what I do still to this day. And it's something that has really like burnt the internal old self. Like I am not the same person as I was. And like people around me notice that and they say it, and that is because I've done these things. I believe the first thing is astrology based shadow work. That is not a manifestation technique, that is not a visualization technique, that is genuinely understanding my depths of my soul, the underworld of my soul. Genuinely have done that, and no one can tell me anything that I don't know about myself now. I feel like I literally, and I'm not saying that in an egotistical way, I'm just saying like I know when I'm in a pattern. It doesn't mean that I don't get out of that pattern and I stop doing that immediately, but I know now that I'm like, you're doing that because you're seeking that. So if you gave yourself that, would you still entertain that? Does that make sense? And knowing, like, for instance, I will constantly seek clarity before action, and knowing that that is something that I actively, at the end of every day, I have a shadow work prompt or just a prompt, and that prompt has something to do with waiting. So every day I am aware that what has been the waiting zone and what hasn't. So I am like constantly affirming the fact that I know that I'm waiting in some parts and not waiting in other parts. I have an old self and new self section of my journal. So the new self always has way more habits than the old self now. Whereas when I first started, it was like, didn't do this, didn't do this, I stopped doing this. It takes time, but the more and more you write down the new self habits, the more and more that new self becomes longer and longer and longer, and the list just goes on, and it becomes something that you're constantly affirming. I'm no longer her. So that's something that I do to like affirm. I've like done the astrology based shadow work. I've done all of that, and now I affirm the new self versus the old self, and how I'm acting as her on a daily basis. It's intuitive now. It's not something I have to force. At the beginning, I did have to force myself to do it, but like any habit, you do have to go through some sort of uncomfortability at first. And the other things, which I would say are like 20% of this journey, the rest is embodiment. And if you do want to know embodiment habits, and like, because I feel like I we often need to go through this journey ourselves. I can say things that resonate, and maybe that will push you to nearer to your goals, but ultimately you like need the eyes open, like you need that moment that I had. So for a very long time people were saying act as her, and I used to say I don't have the money, how am I supposed to act as her? But now I'm like, oh, I know what they meant. So if you do want habits, let me know in the comments and I'll try and create a video. But I do need to say, even if I said the habits to you, it still might not click. You still need to like have that aha moment for yourself, and that doesn't always come as easy, I think, for people. Like I didn't know, it took me a very long time to understand what those habits were for myself. Okay, so the other things were, is like I said, I created astrology based subliminals for myself for my transit chart. Last year, I focused purely on the first half of the year. I focused purely on the Virgo South Node, and I had a subliminal that I created that had releasing of like any sort of control, any sort of thing that I was holding on to. I created that subliminal for that. I don't really listen to subliminals as much now, but if I did, I probably wouldn't do one based on astrology just because I feel like um I did so much work on that for the last part of 2024 to the first part of 2025 that I think that, like, for me, I know my intuition is like it's not necessary anymore. But if you're just starting out, or if you're interested in it, I would say just look at your chart and see what you feel like, what area of your transit chart feels like is calling you to evolve, and maybe what subliminals could cater to that. Whether you um make them yourself, which I always think is the best thing to do because you don't know people's intentions when it comes to subliminals. There's someone that I follow, which is Lisa Alexandra, I think her surname is. I used to be part of her manifestation group, and she's got such valuable knowledge. Um, and she creates her own subliminals, and I've been in her private membership, and I really like align with her, and I think she does really valuable affirmations and subliminals. So that's the only person that I've personally used those subliminals for, and I'd recommend them. Otherwise, just make your own. They're really easy to do. You just need some sort of frequency sound, and make sure the subliminals are very low, so you can't hear them. I'm sure if you type into like Google or ChatGPT or something, it would give you the exact steps on how to create a subliminal. The other thing I do is EFT. I do EFT tapping 3-4 times a week. I used to do it every day. EFT tapping is just genuinely my language. Like, it's affirming, it's regulating, it's expanding. It's something that I think especially if you need the body senses type thing, EFT is great, and I would really recommend it. I create my own, but you can get them online. I think I can't remember his name, but there's a guy who's been doing it for years and years and years on YouTube. So just type in EFT tapping, and he might have a script or something like that for you. I also know that some people put scripts out on Pinterest, so you could look at that one if that interests you. I do it specifically for my wound, like for the wounds that I have. I do EFT specifically for those, and the affirming of the new identity is what I use my EFTs for. I then do scripting. As I said, scripting is not something I do like every day, nor do I do it like a few times a week. I sometimes like pick like a Thursday because it's Jupiter Day. I kind of do a script, and that script is purely about like a morning of mine, an evening of mine, a skincare routine, a shower routine, whatever it may be. I tap into the senses and the feelings of what that feels like. And after I write it, I always just feel like, oh God, that was so beautiful. So I would say, like, if you're interested in that, try and tap into the feelings more, and you might feel aligned with it, and it might feel like it actually is possible. Versus if you just scripted, today I woke up with £10,000 in my bank account, like that won't feel as connected as if you said how you got that. Like, I worked with a client, they were so it was such a touching experience. I got them through this person. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you go into detail with it and you tap into the senses and the feelings, that can help a lot. And then I also do mirror work. Mirror work for me is not a form of manifestation, even though it can be, it really can be. It is more of like feeding my moon. So I have a Leo moon, and Leos always need validation. They need a mirror. They need to be mirrored. That's like something that is a need for them, not in a negative way, but in like that is a form of affirmation for them. They desire someone to see them fully and to be mirrored with that. So mirror work is really important for me, and it makes me feel valued, even if I just like stare at myself in the mirror, which seems, I know a lot of people would say, egotistical. But those people obviously don't have any Leo placements because so yeah, I do that, and I say things. I don't script those things. I don't even know what to say in the moment. I just say what feels right in that moment, and it feels very affirming when I do it. Those things, like I said, are things that help, But if I've done them for a very long time without embodiment and it never came, I've done them with embodiment and things started to shift. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say £10,000 came into my bank account the next month. No, it was, like I said to you, £5, £25, £100, a client. Those things started to get better when I literally put embodiment in. As soon as it was embodiment, it was like, and I showed up consistently with that embodiment, things started to shift for me. I hope this video was informational and I hope it really helped you. Like I said, I'm not here to, I don't want to intellectualize things too much, nor do I want to create content that doesn't actually align with what I've done. Like, I'm going to always teach you. I'm going to always give you the information, but from my lived experience, because that is the most important thing to me. I went from absolutely not being able to walk up the stairs to living in an 8-year relationship that was extremely toxic and was just really like not a nice experience to go through, to losing jobs, to losing opportunities, to now fully living in alignment and having opportunities come for me and I don't need to ask for them. I'm telling you that through my lived experience. I'm not going to tell you the data or the facts or something that's happened within someone's chart. I'm always going to tell you how I move from here and here through my lived experience. Again, if that is something that interests you, then make sure to subscribe. If you want to understand your waiting loop and what that actually looks like, and you seeing it through lived experience, like I'm genuinely telling you what this would look like if this was your life, through aspects, through the natal placement, through transit charts and what Saturn is telling your natal Saturn to do, etc. So if you're interested in understanding Saturn through lived experience, then the self-paced video course is £55 and it is linked down below. Let me know if any of that interests you. Let me know if you've actually thought about your elements in your chart. Anyway, that was a long ramble. I'm going to go now. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.